a lot of artistic presentations, some sort of like jewelries, some sort of like keychains, you could just uh, you know like come up with the chains of keys, so with the picture, like with some sort of tactile, like braille dots, and some sort of handicrafts stuffs having the photos of Louis Braille or Helen Keller. People who have sight, they are very much attracted towards those stuffs. So we have targeted this market especially uh, to sighted and to tourists, because they get to see those crafts done by our beneficiaries with different disabilities. So because we don't only help blind and visually impaired, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs who have sight, and they are able to see and make some designs in terms of some like filling up some arts, and that makes the combination very awesome. So once we work together, there remains no barrier. So yeah, this way also. And I would also like to add one thing I that mentioned, I forgot before, was I have been to United States several times doing my solo adventure. I'm completely blind, and I did some solo adventure in United States. So whenever I went there to States, I brought a lot of electronic gadgets, for example, refurbished computers, and we helped those computer sets with to the people who are severely physically challenged because of earthquake. So we taught them graphic designing and video editing stuffs, so that they could work right from their homes. And we are doing some sort of outsourcing things, like connecting them with some corporate houses, because corporate houses, they also want to have their video editing or do some sort of graphic things. So they are also getting persons who could work for them, and people who are who have severe disability, they can also work right from their home, just using computer and the skills we have provided. So it's kind of outsourcing model that we have used for our business modeling thing.
Outstanding, outstanding. And exactly when you say outsourcing from home, what does that entail? Specifically, what job would they be doing at home? Online. I understand it. I podcast online. This
Right.
this is certainly online. I'm nowhere near Kathmandu, and you're nowhere near me, wherever I am.
Yeah, sure.
But this is certainly online. So what job would they be doing online?
Basically, especially designing and video editing stuffs, they can do, and also just to promote Braille. And we have asked different companies and business houses to make their brochures, visiting cards, and their leaflets into Braille also. And we have even asked them to make their invitation letters into Braille also. So whenever they have the works to be done with in regard to designing, and that can be done right from the home, by our beneficiaries. So outsourcing is a kind of making connection between those who need, who would like to offer, who would like to have their works on, and to those who are needing, looking for some sort of opportunities to work. So it's kind of kind of making connection, I think.
So wonderful. I'm really happy. I mean, this really makes me happy as a successful blind person, regardless, as a successful person in America. I'm so glad that this is happening in Nepal. So wonderful. Yeah, well, actually, you know this, but listener, you at home, you'd be surprised. There is a lot that can be done just with YouTube videos. I mean, you can do the editing for people. The other big thing that's oftentimes overlooked, um, and if you want to do this, if there's well, let me tell you what it is first. Is that something that's overlooked in YouTube? Is that there's a great need for videos to be captioned and translated, meaning where someone needs to sit there and like type captions. I don't know how to do it, so I don't do it. But if someone, you know, who speaks a different language wanted to do captions for my videos, that would be great. So yeah, this podcast, by the way, goes out onto my YouTube channel. Um, so yeah, have you ever used that software yourself? Have you ever written captions in Nepali for a YouTube video?
Uh, Not really. Not really. So I have made very limited videos, and in terms of English, so it's I have generated, or like done auto generated kind of things, and I did manual caption writing once, but in terms of Nepali, I have not. So so having heard from you, it also inspired me to try more like videos, and doing this in Nepali, localizing content in Nepali also.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
would be very wonderful.
yeah. As far as I'm concerned, I don't see why not. As far as Aaron, right here from Aaron's opinion is concerned, if you have a Nepalese friend who watched
Right,
this but
right,
they
right.
need Nepali translation, you're more. I'm not stopping you. You're more than welcome
Sure.
to do captions
Yeah,
for
of
my
course.
video.
Yeah.
Of course, I would have no idea how it works, but some of the famous YouTubers,
Hmm.
there's a way to like make money doing that. Yeah,
Hmm.
there is some. Yeah, I don't know. There is definitely a website and companies where they hire people all over the world to do captioning.
Hmm.
That's a bit, and you would think that could be done with robots, but no, it really can't. So we need people to do that. Yeah. And
Right,
by
right.
the way, how many languages do you speak? By the way, I speak English and French. How many languages do you speak?
I Nepali, Hindi, a little bit Chinese, little bit Spanish,
Wonderful,
English.
wonderful, man, wonderful.
Yeah.
And how and why did you learn a little bit of Spanish?
Because like I love adventure. I love challenging different things. So that's why like because I do travel a lot. I did
Me
travel a
too.
lot in the past also. So I think language connects people. So sometimes we need to learn some like phrases and words that would save our life.
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. And in a nutshell, in summary,
Mhm.
what can you tell me about the Nepali language? Is it a similar language to Hindi?
It's yeah, similar language to Hindi because the root is the same. It's called Sanskrit.
Hmm.
So Nepali, Hindi, Bangla, Bengali. So these all are the families of kind of same root. So yeah, very similar.
I see. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, interesting. So yeah, I mean, in Nepalese schools and society, are children learning English at school now?
Yeah, they're learning English. So in the past, in our time, so there used to be different gap between government school and private school. So government school only had one English subject, but in boarding or private school would be much more expensive, and they would have like really excellent English teaching and learning activities. But nowadays, government school has also adopted different activities to help students learn English. So it's growing now.
Excellent. So good. So good. Yeah, I've taught students from all over the world.
Hmm.
Online. I work for, as I tell people, I work for Company X. I don't, I keep it to
Hmm.
myself what it's called, but I call it Company X, let's say. I've had a couple Nepalese people living in the Middle East, but I've never, no, actually, now that I think back to it, I did have one Nepalese teenager living in Kathmandu, but I've seen, as far as the internet goes, I've seen, significantly less people from Nepal, less internet activity as
Hmm.
far as students and people coming from your region.
Right.
Even even in India, there's not as many learners of English online as you would think.
Mhm.
Yeah, it seems like India, Nepal, those countries just are starting. They're starting, certainly starting to understand and make a connection globally with the internet, but it's not as common as some of the other Asian countries. It
Right,
seems.
right,
Mhm.
right. That's very true.
Yeah. So yeah, so you like going on adventures.
Right.
And so where have you traveled to in the United States?
So I have been to Boston, Washington D.C., Pennsylvania, then California, San
Uh,
Francisco, and I hiked and camped into Mount Lassen National Park, which is the biggest volcanic national park of the world, I think. Not only I think, but it's true. Then I went to Seattle, uh, and went up to Buffalo, Canadian border, the Niagara Falls.
hmm.
Yeah, so let me tell you a little bit of the story about my US adventure. So in 2014 I was invited by Fletcher Summer Institute, like it's under Tufts University in Boston. So there was a conference. So after that conference I decided to travel of my own because I had more visa late. So then I contacted, because the conference that I went at Tufts University was not for for people with disabilities. So I decided, since I came here, I should go and explore what kind of things people do here and what kinds of life there. So I contacted the National Federation of the Blind. At the as a coincidence, their conventions was happening in Orlando, Florida. Then they invited me over there. So I went to Washington D.C. from Boston and took 20 hours train ride with the team of Washington D.C. National Federation of the Blind, and went to Orlando, Florida, and attended the national convention and made a lot of blind and visually impaired friends there. And that happened in 2014. So right after earthquake, I was invited by World Bank to speak about our relief, post earthquake relief works in Washington D.C. The conference was for 4 days. So after like speaking there, then I again decided now I should do something for Nepal. So I launched a campaign called Trash into Treasures. So I went to Washington D.C., National Federation of the Blind, Pennsylvania, New York, Buffalo, and I asked people, so if you really want to help Nepal, so give something that would uh, be your trash, what could be our treasures. So Dean Stonecipher from Columbia Lighthouse for the Blind at that time, he also helped me collect a lot of broken canes, and he helped us fix those canes, and we made all those trashes into treasures. And Dean Stonecipher, Libra Robinson, and Son Callaway, even our friend from New Jersey, Alvin Glasgow, they all helped me in this campaign, and I was able to bring a lot of hundreds of sturdier canes from United States, and we donated those canes and magnifiers to the earthquake victims, visually impaired folks. So I am really really grateful to those people who helped me, especially those blind and visually impaired fellows. Helping Nepal at that time was really really commendable, and I always appreciate their efforts, to help Nepal at that time.
Well, I think that's wonderful. Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that you had such a good experience. I would also be a little confused about why you why you chose to take a 20-hour train ride from Washington D.C. when they could have flown. But I'm guessing that you were so appreciative and so happy to be able to go to the national convention in Orlando
Right.
that I don't think you complained about the 20-hour train
No,
ride.
no, I was not complaining. It was just like telling the story of adventure. So
That's
because
cool.
yeah, there was a crew of National Federation of the Blind, and we traveled together. No hassle at all.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. We're coming up on the hard break here.
Hmm.
And listener, my name is Aaron Richmond. He's Sushil. from Kathmandu, Nepal. We're going to keep this going. But of course, you're listening to 87.1 Caroline Radio, KCGN.